So, I welcome you all. Nice to see so many in the church. It's a happy moment for all of us. Welcome. And I'm sure it will pick up tomorrow and day after too. So thank you very much for being here this evening. And thank you, Father, once again. I request you to take over. Feel free to talk as much as you want and help us to grow in faith and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Very dangerous telling a Franciscan he's got all the time in the world, especially when they're sitting on padded seats and there's no clock. You do know the story of the Franciscan from Ireland. He was preaching away and he was going on and on and on and on, and some party that was one of the guys in the congregation got up and began to leave, and the friar yelled out, "McGillicuddy, where are you going?" He says, "Father, I'm going to get my hair cut." He says, "McGillicuddy, you should have done that before church began." He said, "Father, I didn't need it before you started preaching." I don't know if I need a microphone, but I'll turn it on just in case there's some hearing impaired. And you have to be pretty impaired if you can't hear me yelling. Wow, okay, be careful. My first funeral as a priest was very difficult. It was a 19-year-old young man whom I came to know very well. I got to his house because I was sent on what I call a St. Monica mission. A St. Monica mission is when you're invited to somebody's house. Oh, we're going to get the moving of the flowers. That's a big mum. So a St. Monica mission is when a mother invites you over to the house to talk to their wayward son, hoping they have a St. Augustine moment and realize they have to change their ways. So there's one boy in my youth group, his older brother was in bad shape. He was at the time 18 years old and involved in all kinds of crazy things. One of my favorite stories about him is that he was out beating somebody up, and the kid ran behind a glass door, and he said, "I'm not done with you yet," and punched through the glass door to finish beating this kid up. That's the kind of kid we're talking about. He was a very popular kid. He dressed well, he looked good, he used drugs recreationally, he kind of was like this, the girls liked him and everything else, had a temper that nobody could believe, and he liked to mess around with a lot of trouble. So I go into the house, and he's bouncing out of the house ready to go do something, and he stops, looks, and goes, "What are you?" I said, "I'm Father David, I'm a Franciscan." He shook hands, and we got into a great conversation about faith, about the cross. It happened almost immediately. But then he was like, "I gotta go." He left. And we began to develop a bit of a relationship. He'd come on a retreat now and then, but really wouldn't stay, really didn't. It was almost like he wanted faith, but yet didn't. And as time went on, Jeff got himself in some really bad situations. He wound up being sentenced to a 2-year program, kind of an option to prison, kind of a prison boot camp. And while he was there, he was running, and he was being made to run, and his ankles began to swell so bad he fell to the ground screaming in pain that it cut his boots off him, and eventually they discovered he had leukemia at age 19 years old. He was released from the boot camp because basically the sentence that he had with leukemia was far worse than what they could give him, and they couldn't treat him in the prison for it. So Jeff and I became a bit closer because of what took place, and I'd spent a lot of time visiting with him and spending time and going back and forth to treatments, and eventually it came to a point when I would actually bring him to appointments. And I'll never forget the last one I took him to. We went up to Boston Hospital, we're in there, and we sit down, and he kind of liked his Dr. Wolf because he told it like it was, in minced words. And so Dr. Wolf comes in, he sits down, he says, "Jeff," he says, "you're infested with leukemia. I hit you with everything I got. I have nothing left to give you, kid. This is it." He says, "You got about 6 months to live, maybe less." And he says, "I'm going to die?" He says, "Yes, Jeff, you're going to die soon." And to watch this kid's, 19-year-old kid's eyes open wide, his face dropped, and he screamed, "I'm going to die!" And he looks at me and says, "Father Dave, I'm going to die!" And I couldn't say, "No, you're going to be okay, Jeff, don't worry about it," because it wasn't. He was going to die. That just became the reality at that moment. He had to face death. He said, I'm not even 19 years, 20 years old yet. I haven't done anything with my life. I said, Jeff, if you get to heaven, you've done everything with your life. Everything. And all of a sudden, our conversations changed to talk about God and about faith and about the reality of life after death. And I remember just after that point, we're driving to Vermont to visit his brother, and the sun is just setting in the distance over the Berkshire Mountains, this beautiful sunset. I mean, God had his paintbrush out. And we're watching the sunset, he goes, Fonte, look, isn't that beautiful? I said, yeah, Jeff, this is earth. Imagine what heaven must be like. He goes, you think? I said, I don't know, you're going to be there before me, you tell me. He did laugh. We had that type of relationship, you know. But it was all of a sudden, when he had to actually face his mortality, he had to face life. When he had to face the reality that death was imminent, he had to face the reality of why he existed, why he was alive. What was after that grave? And oftentimes in our lives, we hit tragedies, we hit difficulties, we hit hard times, and that's what comes up in our hearts. This questioning of what comes next. Is there a God? Is he real? Is this true? We have to wonder, is this whole God thing something that really is true, or is this just something I was told as a little kid to behave? Do I really and truly believe that there is a God, there is an eternity, there is a heaven, this whole Jesus thing is real? Or is there just nothingness? Does my life have any meaning? Because if there's no God, and there's nothing after this life, we have a pretty miserable existence, don't we? If this is all there is, it's a pretty scary thing. No wonder why those who don't believe in God are so depressed. There really is nothing to hope for. There really is nothing to look forward to except suffering, except death, except the falling out of existence. And we know that that's contrary to what we know in our hearts, like what we believe in our hearts, because we know down deep we want to believe in something that is eternal. We want to believe that there's something after death. Even the biggest atheist, the most devout atheist, if you can call an atheist devout, wants to believe that there must be something more. There's got to be. I mean, inside our hearts, in the depths of our hearts, we know that death is not natural to us. Right? What happens when you get the news that somebody's going to die? What's the first thing you think? This is wrong. This shouldn't be. I mean, whether they're old or whether they're young. You know, the funny part about being a hospital chaplain is you hear some funny, I mean, people mean it the right way, but it's just kind of, you sit back and think about it, you kind of chuckle, you know? Somebody dies at 97 and somebody's yelling, too soon, too soon. Guy was like 97, that's too soon. He was hoping to go, you know? So true. But there's a reality that we know when we hear the news of death or sickness. We just know in the depths of our hearts it's not natural. The one thing we always feel is it's not supposed to be this way. And that is so true. Because it's not. When God created the human person, He did not create us for death and suffering and sickness and all these things. That wasn't His original intent in creating us. He Himself says, I did not create death, nor do I rejoice in death. He didn't create us for death. He created us for life. When He put our father Adam in that garden, He breathed into him the breath of life. And gave him life. You do know that God made Adam and said, I can do better. That was for the ladies. There was that real truth about that moment when God creates us in His image and likeness, the God of the living, and created us for that fullness of life. But what screwed it up? That old thing called free will. God gave us this gift of free will to choose love, to choose life, to choose to be union with God. God gave us the gift of free will so that we could freely love. He had to risk it. If we were going to be able to love God in return, He had to give us free will. I mean, without free will, how do we love? We have to have that ability. I mean, your computer, you can program it to tell you that it loves you every time you turn it on. I love you, I love you, I love you, you know. But that doesn't mean the computer loves you. You've programmed it. It doesn't have a will or a choice. It doesn't have the option to reject you. That'd be pretty awesome. Hey, just somebody messes around with you. You program it to tell you that loves you. Put away. Get away from me. You know? Think about that. You know? Stop touching my keys. The reality of that God gives us this beautiful gift of free will so we can choose to love, but in doing so, He had to risk the rejection. And had a risk that we would actually choose death. That we who were created for life, that we who were created to live with joy without suffering, we who were given the gift of infused knowledge at the moment of our creation, that we would actually turn in on ourselves when we turned against God. And we would choose death and destruction over the gift of life. That one little moment in the garden when they reached for that fruit, wouldn't you like to be there to go, no! Don't do it! I always joke around with teenagers, and I said, you know, Eve must have been a blonde ditz, you know? No offense to anybody in the room. You know? You're like, oh look, a talking snake! Hello, Eve! You know, you and Adam can talk here? Are we catching this problem right now? You know? And there's Adam just sitting on the side doing absolutely nothing while his wife is having a conversation with the Prince of Demons. Hello, Adam! You want to step in here, maybe, buddy? You know? And they choose to enter into death and suffering. But our God so loves us that although our first parents made that choice of death for all of us, God still had the choice of life for us. Still had that decision, that choice that He was not going to leave us in death, that He was going to give us the gift of life. I mean, if you read the Old Testament, what you see is this constant reality of man choosing destruction and sin, and God trying to rescue him from his own destruction and sin. I mean, the God of the Old Testament is not the mean guy trying to find anybody to throw some lime and some stone after, you know? Got him with some sulfur. Got him with a little bit of fire. I'm going to flood down here. Okay, there we go. Just trying to be some sort of mean God. What we see in the Old Testament is God over and over again trying to intervene, trying to help, trying to assist, calling us to conversion, calling us to step up and to stand up and be who we really are and choose life and not death. Even when they get 40 years in the desert, they get to the edge of the Holy Land, and Joshua says to them, I put before you today a choice. Choose life, choose death, choose a blessing, choose a curse. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Who will you serve? You see, when we face death and suffering, we start getting these questions about what's real, what exists, what's there, what's not there. And we begin to forget the truths that we've been taught. When we have to face the various sufferings of life and the difficulties of life, a lot of times our memories go on the fritz. And we forget the truth of who we really are to God. We forget the truth of what we mean to Him. We forget what it means to be human, to be made in the image and likeness of God. We even forget what it means to be loved by God. We begin to question whether or not we should actually trust this being called God. If there is a God, why did such and such happen to me? If there is a God, why did such and such happen? If there is a God, what about this? I had a young man I knew many years ago. His mother had died of AIDS when he was 15. And we were outside of a retreat one day in the city streets of Brooklyn, and he was screaming at me. Why did God take my mother? I don't believe in Him. I hate God. God. He killed my mother. I hate him. I don't believe in God. There is no God. There is no God. I hate him. I said, for someone who doesn't believe in God, you have a lot of hatred for him. Because I do believe him. I just hate him. I said, all right. Let's back up what we mean by that. You're hurt over the fact that your mother is no longer with you. You know, we begin to work through the whole why he was having such a hard time with faith. Because his mother died. He was blaming God for taking his mother. And all that he had been taught, all that he had learned, all that he knew, and I knew he knew well because I taught him since he was young high, it all began fuzzy. It all began to forget because of the amount of pain that he was in. And the amount of suffering that he was enduring. You see, when we face these sufferings in life, we face these difficulties and those struggles set in, that's when faith actually has to become real for us. And before that actually happens, hitting that suffering, we have to begin to allow faith to become something more than just the Sunday punch the card Catholic. More than just, I did what I was supposed to do Catholic. I followed the 10 Commandments. I did what I had to do to make it into heaven. Because that'll take us for a while. But until we develop a relationship with God, a true and deep relationship with Him, all that becomes fuzzy. Unless I truly come to know the truths of the faith, not just on the intellectual level here, until I really come to understand the depths and the truths of the faith down here, and begin to live in a relationship with my God, and understand that He is in love with me, and who I am to Him, until I do that, I will not be able to face those hard times, and be able to get through them. That's why I brought up that whole journey of the Old Testament. In that journey of the Old Testament, we don't have this God who's just trying to get people or anything else. We have a God who's trying to enter into relationship. He's always describing himself as the groom of Israel. Israel is his bride. Even one time, he has one of the prophets go and marry an adulterous woman. She keeps cheating on him. He says, take it back, take it back. And basically the message was, this is what Israel's been to me. Like an unfaithful wife. And I keep taking you back because I love you. I always wondered where, like, I'm from New York. And New York Jews have an incredible sense of humor. And a very strange sense of humor. And only after reading the Old Testament do I realize they kind of get it from God himself. Like the prophet is told to go out and get himself a brand new loincloth, bury it for 3 days, make it all dirty, and then walk through the streets telling people, this is what you've been to me, says the Lord. You've been like a dirty pair of underwear. I mean, like, God had to get like really down to earth with them. You know, like, this is how unfaithful you've been. This is what you're like. A dirty pair of underwear. You got it? This is how close you've been to me, and this is what you've been like. I'd be like, really, Lord? Scripture can be very, very funny if you read it properly. There's a lot of humor in Scripture. But there is this God who is so close to us, he can say those things. That when we look at the Old Testament, we're seeing a God as a God who is in love with humanity. We really miss that truth. We miss that fact that we're not just something that God loves. We are something that God is in love with. A God who does crazy things that only a crazed lover would do. I mean, think about what God has done for the human family. I mean, is he out of his mind? Lord, in case you haven't checked the history books, we've been pretty unfaithful. We're prone to sin. We got that thing called concupiscence going on, which makes us prone to fall. Watch any 3-year-old for more than a half hour and you will discover concupiscence. They're doing things wrong. You ask, are you doing that? And they go, no. This isn't me, you know. And yet the Lord is still in love with us. One of the saints said he's drawn to us because we're weak. It makes him love us even more. It's awesome. It's odd to consider the fact that God is so in love with us that He does the most incredible, crazy things. But it's the truth. And Pope John Paul II said that God knew that Adam and Eve would fall into sin, so God always knew that He would become man, and so God always knew that He would die on the cross. When God chose to create our first parents, God chose to suffer. He chose the cross when He made our first parents. Think about that. That's how much in love He is with us. That when He chose to create us, He knew He was saying yes to the cross, yes to the passion, yes to the crown of thorns, yes to the nails. It wasn't like Adam and Eve fell. He's like, okay, now what do I do? How am I going to get out of this mess? Gotta think about this. I know, maybe I'll become man. Let me think about it for another 2,000 years. It was planned. He knew that that would be the result of our decision. And He had that decision already made. When we talk about our faith in the Lord, we have to have faith in His love for us. Faith in His love. We are the center of God's world in one sense. Because everything He's doing is for us. He became man for us and for our salvation. To think about that awesome moment when He entered into our world. How incredible was that? I mean, here is God the Son. God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten not made, one to be with the Father. Through Him all things were made. He who was, who is, who shall be, became child within the womb. And He rent the heavens and came down to us, and not just to be with us, became one with us, one of us. It's even awesome to contemplate the fact that He only did so with the permission of a human person. God became man with the permission of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Without her fiat mihi, without her let it be done unto me according to thy word, without her saying yes, it would not have happened. I like to point this out to my Protestant brethren who think that the Blessed Mother is somehow, just kind of there. No, that's not what the faith teaches. And if she says, no, there is no incarnation, there is no Christmas, there is no Good Friday, there is no resurrection from the dead, there are no sacraments, there is no heaven. If she says, no, that's it, it's over. He's not like shopping for a mom. Will you be my mother? No. Will you be my mother? No. Will you be my mother? Oh, thank you. Trying to find somebody who would say yes in this world. She alone. And God respected her answer because God is a lover. And God respects our free will. So He only came by the permission of humanity. As Eve, by her free will, took us down by eating the fruit of the tree, so the Blessed Virgin Mary opens the door to eternity for us by allowing God to become man, by saying yes, giving her permission, and giving her whole self to the love of God, and allowing God to become incarnate within her womb. God among us. Emmanuel, God with us. That would be a pretty awesome thing for the Blessed Mother to be walking around as a living tabernacle. I mean, home in Nazareth must have been pretty awesome. I think of Bethlehem. That first time when Christ is born and they behold His face for the first time. I mean, the face that Moses was not permitted to look upon there. Mary is gazing upon. The mighty hands of God that held back the Red Sea are holding her finger. The mighty feet of God that launched before the nation of Israel can't even hold up His little body. The mighty voice of God that thundered, I am who am, babbles. The mighty voice of God who speaks all things, says one word to someone he's never said to anybody else ever before. Mommy. I mean, God has a mother. That's pretty cool. He who has no, who's existed from the beginning, has always existed, now has a mother. It's actually pretty awesome to think that this was the first time God had ever been loved by one of his creatures. With a mother's love. Someone who loved him solely because he is. And wanted nothing for herself. Only wanted the best for him. It was the first time one of his creatures actually perfectly loved him when he laid in her arms the first time. The beautiful reality of God coming into our world and reverencing our world, sanctifying our world by living in our world as one of us. There was no stately bear to make us look upon him, Isaiah said in the prophecy. He looked like every other kid. It wasn't like, oh, there's the holy kid Jesus, look at him shine. You know? I often think about the home at Nazareth. Like, as I said earlier, it was pretty radical. I mean, I feel bad for poor St. Joseph. Had him have breakfast every morning with the Immaculate Conception and the Incarnation. What do you say at the breakfast table in conversation? Good point, good point. I'm just going to shut up. You keep talking. You know? Not being able to say to your son, so you think you know it all. How do you tell the creator of the universe to take out the trash? Please? You know? This is beautiful reality, you know. I always think, another thing I say about St. Joseph, you know, it must have been tough being the only guy in the house with original sin. Who broke the door? Blame the guy original sin. But the reality of the fact that God enters into the human family and sanctifies the human family. We'll talk about family tomorrow night. That God so loved his creation and so respected his creation, he enters into his creation to sanctify it, to make it holy, to make it more than just good, more than just very good, to make it holy. God, who initiated this relationship with us, although we rejected the relationship, never gave up on us. Even though we have given up on ourselves 1,000 times, God has never given up on humanity. But so loved us that he came into humanity, embraced humanity, became a man just like us in all things but sin, we are told. Sanctified our human life. He worked with his hands. I mean, God could have made anything by just simply willing it into existence. You know? So think about St. Joseph too in the carpenter's shop. You know, nice son, take the wood like this, take the saw. You made this wood, didn't you? But yet he chose to work with his hands. In a poor family. Although Joseph was the rightful heir to the throne, the kings have been deposed, he lived as a poor man. Jesus grows up as a poor man's son. Is he not the son of Joseph the carpenter, they ask? Is not his hands calloused? He sanctifies human labor. He makes it something beautiful, something good, something sacred. And think about what he did in his public life. We're talking about faith tonight. That faith we must have in Jesus Christ. The faith that Jesus Christ is the eternal Son of God, that he is God from God, light from light, true God from true God, who has become incarnate, enfleshed among us. That faith we must have in him and faith in his words. Please, if you haven't read the New Testament, pick it up and read it. Read the Gospels. Read what Jesus said and believe what he said. A friend of mine, she's an evangelical. She says, how do Protestants use their Bible? I said, how? She says, Protestants use their Bibles like this. She says, how do you Catholics use their Bible? I said, how? She was like this. And there's truth to that. She also said, If I believed that was Jesus truly in the Eucharist, I'd be crawling on my hands and knees to receive him. I said, yeah, you don't know him like we do. But truly, his words are so powerful. If I really believe that Jesus is the Son of God, that he is God incarnate, then the words that he spoke, I must hear, embrace, and truly and really believe. And not fear his words. He has many disturbing things to say to us. Like, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Turn the other cheek. You've heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. I say to you, love your enemies. Now, I don't know about you, but I like living in a one-eyed, toothless world. That's a challenging thing to be asked to do. Why should I do that, Jesus? Because you've been shown mercy. You've been shown forgiveness. Who are you not to be merciful? Who are you not to forgive your brother? And Peter chimes up with, hey, what if he offends me 70 times, 7 times? Because Andrew's right now number 8. What if he offends me 7 times? Lord, forgive 70 times, 7 times. Oh, really? If I count to 49 and call it that, call it that. But other words that he speaks to us are so powerful. Especially when he speaks of God the Father and his love for us. 15 times in one sermon. Oh, Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father's care. Heavenly Father's love for us. John 3:16. God so loved the world he gave his only begotten Son. These are words of our Lord himself. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Do you believe that? Do you have faith in those words? Look at the birds of the sky that don't reap or sow, and your Father feeds them, and the flowers of the field. Solomon always splendors on a ray like one of them. If he so feeds the birds of the air and clothes the flowers of the field, how much more will he do for you, O little faith? Are you not more important than birds and flowers? Your Heavenly Father knows your needs before you ask. Do you believe that? Do we really have the faith to believe that I'm more important than the birds and the flowers? Do we really have the faith in God to believe that my Heavenly Father knows my needs before I ask, and my Heavenly Father will provide, and not to have anxieties or fears or worries because my Heavenly Father loves me? Do I have faith in those words? Check your worry schedule. Check your anxiety level. Double check the blood pressure. Do I have faith in those words? Do I have faith when he says about the call to belong to him, the call to be one with him, the call to be a true adopted child of the Father, that call to baptism, which he tells me makes me a son of God, a child of God, reborn in the waters of baptism. Do I believe that Christ gave me rebirth in those waters? Do I have faith in the reality that I have been cleansed from sin and can live a new life in God through the gift of baptism? Do I have that true faith in his mercy, in the gift of the confessional, where God pours forth his mercy and forgiveness on me? Or do I think somehow that my sins are greater than God's mercy? I am so powerful I can commit sins that God will not forgive. I am just greater than the mercy of God. We believe that. I mean, do we have faith in the truth of his love for us? And I don't mean like, oh, I believe God loves me, but do you believe that God is in love with you? That's an important question. Because we can believe, oh, I believe God loves me. Kind of, sort of. Because we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see one thing. We see this mess. We see the sum of our bad decisions. We see the sum of our sins. We see the horrible things that we've done. And somehow we think that that's all that God sees. Yeah, he sees that. He's like, okay, let's get that confessed. Let's get that out of the way. Let's move on, would you? But somehow we bound ourselves, imprisoned ourselves, that God can love everybody except me. I create this prison for myself, and I wall myself in. that God can't even love me because of the evil of what I've done and who I am. Well, that's just not true. Take the sledgehammer of faith and smash down that wall. Because it's a lie. It's a lie spoken from the depths of hell itself. Because the evil would like us to believe that. And my faith cannot be based in lies. My faith must be based in the truth of Jesus Christ. Do I believe in the Eucharist? Do I truly have faith that Christ so loves me that he gives himself completely, totally, without reservation, without hesitation, to me in the gift of the Holy Eucharist? I was at the top of the Spanish Steps in Rome. You go up those beautiful Spanish steps, there's a beautiful church up there. And I'm in there praying, and some kid comes and kneels down behind me, and he's crying and crying and crying. So I turned around and said, so his wristband said in English, it said Jesus in English. I grabbed his wristband and I said, are you American? He says, yeah. I said, are you okay? He says, yeah, I'm just in awe of everything I'm seeing. No, it's incredible. I mean, the foundations of the faith here. I said, where are you from? He says, California. Turns out he was Baptist. And his Baptist congregation would go to Rome every year to study the foundations of Christianity in Rome. Like, all right, I'm going to get one into the home team with this kid. You know? So we started talking about the faith and this and that. And all of a sudden, various parishioners who were in the church come over, and we're discussing all different aspects of the faith. And then, of course, one of them pipes in and goes, why do Catholics worship Mary? Here we go, Bible bingo time! If you don't have them, it's a great thing to do if you're going to debate with evangelicals and Protestants. Get tabs for your Bible. Then you're prepared for Bible bingo. Let's go! Genesis 3:15, Isaiah chapter 7. Let's go to Micah chapter 5. And we're going through the Old Testament, we're going to the various prefigurements of Our Lady, into another topic. We're going on and on. We're shooting through the Bible back and forth. I'm like, Lord, you are doing good me here by allowing me to remember all these things I should be remembering right now. Like, I did remember that stuff. I should have got a D on that exam in seminary. It came in handy when I needed it. So we're going through back and forth, and the pastor stops and says to me, Father, I would be Catholic if I could believe one thing. I said, what's that? He says, you Catholics actually believe at Mass, when the priest takes the bread and says, this is my body, and the chalice with wine says, this is become my blood. You really believe it becomes the body and blood of Jesus Christ? He said, if I could believe that, I would become Catholic. I said, well, do you believe Jesus is the Son of God? He said, yes. So you believe that if Jesus says something, he really means it? Absolutely. So if Jesus says something, you would believe it, you would hold to it, you would die for it? Absolutely. So if Jesus said it, yes. Well, he said it. Where? John chapter 6. We go to John chapter 6. My flesh is real food, my blood is real drink. Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in you. Amen, amen, I say to you, my flesh is real food, my blood is real drink. Let's go to John 26. Take this one and eat it. This is my body given up to you. Take a drink. This is the cup of my blood. By the word, take two. By the way, the word is that Jesus uses, the command form of the word is. Not like this is wood. That's not the verb. The verb is, this be my body. He's the command form. Like when he said, let there be light, and there was light. When he says, this be my body. This be the cup of my blood. He's commanding the bread and wine to become his body and blood. I said, what does it tell the apostles? Do this in memory of me. Do what? Take bread, take wine, command it to become my body and blood. What did St. Paul have to say about it? Let's go to Corinthians. Oh, look at that. He repeats the Last Supper and says, if you eat the Eucharist without discerning the difference between bread and the true presence, you receive condemnation onto yourself. You condemn yourself. And he looked at me and goes, I've never seen that before. And I'm thinking, you've never seen it before. You are supposed to be the Bible thumper, not me. You're the guy. I'm the guy. And then I ended the conversation. He said, you gave me a lot to think about. We embraced, we parted. I don't know if you ever became Catholic or not, but I gave him a lot to chew on. But do I have that faith? When I read John chapter 6, Jesus saying, this is my body, this is the cup of, take two on that one. My flesh is real food, my blood is real drink. unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Do I believe those words of the Last Supper, those words that priests repeat every single Mass? This is my body. This is the cup of my blood. Do I have the faith to believe that God so loves me that he comes to me at the Holy Mass and feeds me with his very self, that I might become one with him, enfleshed with him? Do I believe those words of St. Paul when he says, we are the body of Christ? We are the bride, the church that has been wedded to him. We are one with him. We who receive him in the Holy Eucharist. Do I really have faith in those words? Faith to truly believe that what Jesus said is true. And then do I follow through with it? If he said that he gives me himself and I'm receiving him, if I really begin to examine my faith deeper and pray with that, what I come to realize is this faith is far more than about rules and regulations. Our faith is about relationship. Our faith is about an intimate relationship with God. Our faith is about a God who chose to love us, who chooses to continue to love us, who has committed himself to us, has promised himself to us, and even if we do not remain faithful, he remains faithful. And he himself says that. Once we begin to realize that Jesus is the Son of God, and we begin to understand his words and read his word with faith, and really grasp it, and understand who I am to him, it radically changes the way I live my life. I'm no longer just the person who shows up 5 minutes before Mass starts and I'm out the door right after communion. I was telling somebody, I think it was Bernie, I was telling today, I was preaching in Philadelphia. I was at Mass in Philly, and I was preaching about people leaving Mass right after communion. The storm kicks up and lightning bolts are hitting all around the church, like lighting the windows up. It was really cool. And I'm like, go ahead, leave Mass early. I think God just said amen. If I really take to heart the truths of the faith and I really enter into this relationship, I'm no longer just the person who's going through the motions. I realize I'm in relationship. I'm getting to Mass early because I realize I got to prepare myself for this. This is no small thing. I am coming to the house of the Lord. I'm about to receive him in his true real presence. I'm going to kneel at Calvary as he offers himself to the Father for me, and then the Father's going to offer him to me. I'm going to receive him, become one with him, enter into this momentary gift of the union with the Trinity. Oh my. I made a little prep work for this. And God calls me to this intimacy. And I stop just showing up just in time. Because it's something I was told I got to do. And I don't book it after communion because I want to get out of the parking lot because there's going to be a line over at the bakery. Oh, you know that. You've been on that line. No, I'm just kidding. You receive communion, you want to stay back, and you want to kneel in that pew, you want to sit there, and you want to enter into that silence just to allow the God to love you in this intimate moment. When the Lord stays with us, they say those 20 minutes when he's fully present in the Eucharist within us, and just to sit with him during that time and just let God be God to me, let him love me, just really converse with him at this intimate moment. And not just rush out the back door. I'm going to be more attentive to what's happening on this altar with my faith in Christ. My faith in the priesthood of Jesus Christ. That as his priest stands in persona Christi behind this altar and is offering the holy sacrifice of the Mass, I'm going to be so attentive to that reality, I'm going to be drawn deep into it because my God is there before me in the great gift of Calvary. And this perpetual offering. My faith becomes so rich that the veil between heaven and earth, the veil that veils us from seeing what's on the spiritual begins to become lighter and lighter. Blessed John Paul the Great used to say, the veil between heaven and earth is very thin. It's very thin. The more we enter the depths of our faith and understand the depths of our faith, we begin to peek through the veil to what's truly happening on the level of the supernatural. We begin to understand and see things in a way we never saw them before. When I realize that God has called me to this intimacy, I'm going to set that time aside at home to be for me and God. We spend time, eating and sleeping and this and that. We just don't cut out that at least 20 minutes to spend with the one who died for love of us, who rose for love of us, who bestows every grace upon us, who that day kept us in existence. We don't cut out just that time just to sit quietly to read the Word. Once we begin to know the reality of who I am, we start cutting out that time for ourselves to sit with Him. Praise Him, to thank Him, to ask forgiveness for anything we've done to hurt the relationship. We begin to just say things about our love for Him. We begin to meditate on His Word and various things because we just enter deeply into this relationship. And it doesn't just become about, I got to get my prayers in before I go to bed. See, too often times for many of us, faith has become about, I don't want to go to hell. And so we're trying to scoot by. It shouldn't be, I'm going to do this because I don't want to go to hell. I mean, that's a good motivation. If you know the motivation, that's a good one. But it's every deep. It's I'm responding to the invitation of my God to enter into this relationship that He's initiating with me. And really responding to what He's asking of me. In the fundamentals of the faith, in my vocation as a husband, a wife, a priest, a brother, a sister, in my life of holiness. We begin to see things like we never saw them before. We need to take the faith serious. We need to take it serious now. Our world is getting darker, if you haven't noticed. Those of you who are 60 and above remember a much different world than we're living in now. Things we never thought we'd see happening are happening. Our country is predominantly Christian, despite what our president has said. What has been the failure? Not the government. We have it. Because we have not taken our faith serious. We got too comfortable as Catholics and as Christians. We got somewhat accepted by society. We got lulled to sleep. And while we were sleeping and just kind of enjoying society, the society began to turn. Darkness creeped in. And now all of a sudden we're stirring from our sleep going, wait, whoa, what's going on? What do you mean? What's going on? When did that become a marriage? All these things happen. Since when can you kill a child in the womb? It's because we have stopped living the fullness of our faith that these things are being allowed to enter in. We have to get back to the basics. Who I am to God. Accept that reality of who I am to Him. I am a poor, miserable wretch of a sinner loved by God unto death. Loved through death into life. And be given the grace and the gift of the Holy Spirit, the sevenfold gifts. That despite my sinfulness, that even when I betray Him, He gives me the gift of confession to bring me right back in line. To know that sanctity of holiness. Who I am before back to that basics of relationship. That I might enter into a relationship with the God who is initiating with me. Faith is actually rather simple. It's rather simple. When faith becomes real, in our lives, and we accept it, and we accept Christ for who He is as the Son of God, and accept what He says as truth, and believe in that truth, we become free. I don't fear the anxieties of this world. Why? Because my Father loves me. I don't fear the suffering of this world. Why? Because I know my suffering has meaning, because I can unite to the cross of Christ, I'm part of the body of Christ, I go to that Father, and my sufferings become part of the passion, and I can bring forth grace upon the soul. So I'm not worried about suffering. What about death? No. I used to like reading the stories of the martyrs who kind of laughed at death. I told the story yesterday of St. Lawrence the deacon chained to a grill being burned alive and saying, "Flip me over, I'm done on this side." Or Thomas More, who had, he was about to be beheaded. He's walking up the steps to get beheaded. He says to the guards, "Help me up, I'll roll myself down." He says, "I die the king's loyal servant, but God's first." He puts his head in the chopping block and says, "Put my beard on the other side, I just washed it this morning. My Father loves me, and death will not keep me from Him. Death will bring me to Him." God knows what we need. He loves me. So what do I learn? So when faith becomes real in our lives, it takes away all those things that are so unnecessary. It's such a distraction. Those things that steal our joy, those things that steal our hope, those things that throw us into that confusion we talked about in the beginning, the twisting of things. Faith has a way of lifting us above all of that. When our faith is real, and those things like death and suffering are all set in, there is a firmness and a clarity, there is a perseverance. We may shake a little bit, focus, because it's about a relationship. We have to go from the external here to the deep internal here with the Lord, and it must become real. Jeff, who I told you about, we got that news, I believe it was in August. On October 2nd, he showed up at the friary, he rang the doorbell, and what was once a young, strapping 19-year-old man is hunched over, skinny, no hair, hat on. He's in his pajama pants and a large shirt. His face is all sunken in. He says, "Father Dave, I've never been confirmed." So I said, "Get in here." Told the bishop, "What do I do?" The bishop says, "Confirm him now." Okay, just need permission. Heard his last confession. And he confirmed him, gave him Holy Communion. Later that day, a couple of days later, he went to the hospital. The following week, we were there with him all night. And it was really beautiful. We'd gone through various experiences in the hospital, learning how to offer his sufferings and so forth. One day he was shaking so bad. He goes, "Father, Father." I said, "All right." I'm holding him like he's just his whole body is trembling. I told him to offer his sufferings now to the cross. And he was doing it. Most of the trembling just stopped, It's so beautiful, the many, many experiences we had. He always had a bad relationship with his mom. That's an important part of the story. They just never got along for some reason. So we're there at his bedside, and the leukemia had moved to the back of his neck, and every exhale was this, "Ah! Ah!" Until they finally got the medication to control that, which took a long time, about 10 hours. And then he was peaceful, he was lying there just kind of hanging on, and thinking to myself, Lord, when Jeff was like really feeling well, he was bad. When he was feeling sick, he was really good. Just give me a little like confirmation that he makes it into the kingdom. Let him die at the hour of your death. Let him die at 3 o'clock in your hour. I just prayed that prayer, and the time is going on, and you see he's lingering, and his mom finally leads up to him and says, "Jeff, for once, obey the 4th commandment. Listen to your mother. Let go. Go home to God." And breathe his last. It was such a consolation to his mom that he was obedient to that moment to let go and go home. And she had such faith to hand him over to God. faith was real. She knew that he was not going to cease in existence. She was fulfilling her role as mother by handing him back into the hands of the Lord. I turned to the doctor, so what time is it? She goes, 3 o'clock. Yes. Good job, kid. You did it. You know? You accomplished the goal of life. You reached the kingdom of heaven. My brothers and sisters, faith is a gift. We must pray for that gift. When we have received the gift, we must live it in our lives. It's a non-option. Without faith, we despair. We lose hope. We lose joy. We lose peace. We lose goodness. We lose kindness. We lose gentleness. We lose all the fruits of the Holy Spirit get lost when we lose faith. Cling to faith. Develop your faith. Live in your faith. Live out your faith. Without fear. Your Father truly loves you. He desires you more than anyone has ever desired you in your life. He longs for you. He said it in the Last Supper. Long have I desired to eat this meal with you. How long is long for somebody without a beginning? He longs for us. So do not be afraid to approach you. To stand before him with all of your sins, all of your weakness, all of your brokenness, and say, here I am. He will embrace you. Just like the prodigal son was embraced by his father. Half naked, starving, walking on the road, hoping to get a good meal. And yet the father ran to him and embraced him, gave him back his dignity as a son, put shoes back on his feet, a shirt back on his back, and killed the fatted calf for him. It was about relationship. The father had welcomed his son home and restored him not as a servant, but as his son. My son was dead, and he's alive again. He was lost, and now he's found. One last story. There was an old man, wise man in this one town. This old wise man was known for his great wisdom and one boy had the talent that tricked him a lot. And one day he figured he got him this time. Little boy at the time comes up to the wise man. He has a bird in his hands. He says to the old wise man, "Old wise man, tell me, is the bird in my hand alive or dead?" And the old man thought for a minute and said, "Well, if I say the bird is dead, he'll open his hands and the bird will fly away. If I say the bird is alive, he'll crush the bird and show me it's dead." So the old wise man looked at the little boy and said, "I don't know if that bird in your hands is alive or dead. It's completely in your hands, isn't it?" Our faith, our relationship with the Lord, whether it lives or dies, is in our hands. We take the gift of our free will, and we can choose to crush that faith and live in despair, darkness, death, in an unkind, unjoyful, ungentle, not so good world. Or we can open our hands with the gift of our free will. Embrace the gift of faith, live that faith, and let our faith soar. And live in that world with peace and kindness and gentleness and goodness and all that God has promised us. I do recommend choosing the Lord. To quote the great Joshua, I put before you today a blessing and a curse, life and death. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Who will you serve? Life or death, blessing and curse. Do you serve the Lord as a servant, or as his son, or as his daughter? Do you love the God who died for the love of you? Let's pray. Father, and Son, and Spirit. Lord Jesus Christ, you call us into relationship with you. by the gift of your Spirit, you make us sons and daughters of your Father, and you share with us the fullness of the glory of the kingdom. Lord, give us right faith, give us certain hope, give us perfect charity. Give us insight and wisdom to know your holy will, to know your will for us, to know that you will only the best for us, that you love us so deeply that you call us into this intimate relationship. Lord, break us free from the lies that we have told ourselves. Break us free from all those things that keep us from you. We surrender ourselves into your mighty pierced hands. Bring us to the Father, and give us the grace of opening our hearts to the Father, that we may accept his love for us, live in that love, and persevere in grace. We ask all this of the Father when we consecrate ourselves to your most holy mother, that she may guide us along this path. As we pray, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Our Lady, Queen of the Family, pray for us. Saint Barbara, pray for us. Saint Francis of Assisi, pray for us. May the Lord bless you, keep you. May he show his face to have mercy upon you. May he turn his countenance towards you and give you his peace. And may Almighty God bless you. Amen. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.